can you see this person's perspective, but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
We are not in a victim mindset. Today, we're going to talk about fear. Hey, sister.
Hey there. How are you?
You know, I'm good. I'm good. And today, before we unpack this heavy suitcase for a lighter spirit, I'm going to introduce you to one of my dearest friends in the world. Bill Cinque is out in California, and he joins us from there in just a second. But I got to tell you how I met Bill. Bill was singing, and it's so funny because we're going to even ask him before we get started. Last night, Billy Idol celebrated his birthday on the stage of the Ryman. And Bill actually has a Billy Idol connection, but we're going to find out first.
Like Billy Idol?
Billy Idol.
White Wedding Billy Idol.
Uh-huh. He was on stage of the Ryman last night.
I wanted to marry him at one time in my life.
I didn't want to marry him, but I did want to tour with him. And
well,
Bill,
I wanted to marry him right after I wanted to marry Derek off of the Bay City Roller. So I'm not real sure how that even worked out, but that's how my mind works. So I went with it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I want you to see now. Bill has spent a lot of time on stage with a guy that you probably know, Neil Diamond, and he played bass for Neil, and there he is on stage, and he had kind of during pandemic, it affected every musician differently, but Bill used his time to really capitalize on another gift. And we're going to talk about fear and how it affects us. But let's just show you a little bit. This song really shows off his voice.
There's a song that was a hit a couple of times.
To get that note in there. I'm going, holy
lovely.
Isn't that good? I always think it's so cool because we have guests on our show that have like these dual lives, because we had the organista teaching us how to get through the trauma and stuff and all that stuff, and then Miss Jackie Wilson, and then we played her singing out. It's like, oh my God. And now we have Bill Cinque that we invite to the party. Hey, Bill.
Welcome, Bill.
Hello, Terry.
Hello,
Devon. My goodness, I was not expecting that. So if I never get a chance to see or listen to these things, it's the first time I've ever heard that with headphones. I actually have an earpiece in. I guess if we're talking about fear, can we talk about embarrassment for the moment? Because I didn't know that was coming. But
well, I have to share that stuff, Bill, because that's how you and I met, was singing. Okay, your Billy Idol connection.
Well, for Terry's sake, I also have a Bay City Rollers connection because I did play with them a little bit. That's maybe another story. Yes, not way back, but back in 2000, couple of times, 2006, 2007, 2010, around that time. But actually, the Billy Idol connection. If he's watching, he wouldn't know me. He wouldn't remember me, but.
That's okay. He forgot a lot, I've heard.
Yeah, well, there was a great, really rock and roll manager. He was a brilliant man. He passed away a few years ago, but his name was Bill O'Coin. And Devon and I have known each other for a lot longer than most people want to
I
admit.
met you when I was 18 years old.
Yeah. And we had this manager, this big manager who was interested in our band. His name was Bill O'Coin. And he was one of the original managers, actually. He put Kiss kind of on the map.
Wow.
And Billy Idol was his client. And to make a long story short, back in those days, actually, Billy Idol's second big record was something called Whiplash Smile. It was a huge record. And we were kind of hanging out in the studio with him, watching him. We were, sitting there having coffee with his manager and his guitar player. We went backstage to a couple of shows, and I never really got to know him well. I got to know the guitar player, Steve Stevens, who he wouldn't remember me either. That's how long ago it is. But we were there kind of in the thick of it, hanging around with these guys. And even then, as big as they were, there was no way of knowing that 37 years later, we'd still be talking about these people. I mean, that's it. He's stood up, he stood the test of time.
Yeah, I mean, played the Ryman Auditorium, which is an odd thing that you think about, the Mother Church of country music, and there's Billy Idol. But Bill, you also went on to tour with Neil Diamond and ended up at Madison Square Garden.
And I did, which was my the Mecca for a New Yorker. And then played, down the street from you, played at the Bridgestone in Nashville. So yeah, that was, the Neil Diamond gig was pretty good by anybody's standard.
Well, I thought, when I ask you to be a guest, and Terry and I unpack a lot of things, and today our subject is fear. And I think that, I think if I thought about walking out on the stage and doing something at Bridgestone or Madison Square Garden, fear is something that you've probably had to face at least once in your life.
Oh, daily. Yeah. Basically fear in this, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but in this past couple of years, I became a hypnotist. And fear can be paralyzing. A lot of people don't necessarily understand fear. Very few people understand it. If you could understand it better, you'd probably deal with it better. Stage fright has been an issue for a lot of entertainers, and it's one of my specialties when I deal with some of my clients. But I've not had stage fright. I have something that's very odd. I am very comfortable in front of 20,000 people. I'm very comfortable in front of 100 people. I'm comfortable in front of a microphone with a guitar in front of 10 people or 10,000 people. If you take away the microphone and I'm sitting in your living room and somebody says, "Hey, Bill, come on, grab the guitar and just sing along," I'm paralyzed. I've had people try to explain it to me. Nobody's done it successfully.
Terry, I'm going to ask you to unpack that just a little bit, because we've got Bill and we're going to talk about hypnotherapy and what that does and how that affects fear. But what would you, when you do what you do, if Bill described that to you about the difference between being on stage and that comfort level and to the one-on-one, or in the intimacy of just a regular, ordinary event?
Well, when I'm working with clients, we do unpack kind of the ingredients of fear, because everybody's ingredients are just a little different. That's why you can be in front of 20,000 people or in the living room and say, grab the guitar, and they affect us differently. But they're still triggering the same part, the amygdala in our brain, and they're still showing up the same way in the body. So mine would be a little different. I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to hear what Bill has to say, because you know me, I'm all about like this learning things. And so I know I handle it differently with clients, more in life experience stuff that may have triggered or caused fear in the beginning. But those fears that we were afraid of in the beginning aren't necessarily fears that are real in today's time. They can feel very real, you know. And then there's good fear, which we'll get into, like don't walk out in front of the bus kind of fear, you know. So fear gets a bad rap, really. In my opinion, I think fear gets a bad rap, but it's because we've created sort of this boogeyman syndrome with fear. And then it's, people personalize it and it grows and it's kind of got this, you know, different look to it.
We're going to do a little welcome here for some of the people who are in the room. Wayne is with us. Hey, Wayne, you know what? Wayne, we miss you when you're not here. Candy is here. Happy December to you. It is almost Friday. Thank God. Morning, y'all. From Elizabeth is here. Candy.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Candy giving the heads up on the singing. Tim, we love Tim. Hello there, ladies. Happy Wednesday to you both. Love y'all. What an amazing voice. Yes, Bill does have an amazing voice. Let's see. Brian Williams is here today. Hey, good to see you. And Joyce is here. Afternoon, Joyce. Good to see you. Candy giving a message. Hello, Bill. Loved hearing you. From Spain, loving these stories. Yes. Elizabeth, it's almost Friday, thankfully. And Lucretia down in Texas. Hello, Devon and Teri. And Lucretia, love to you. And this is Bill, Lucretia.
Well, hello.
When a lot of people have fear when they are told the job that they were counting on is going away, or that thing, we're going in another direction, which is what I heard, or something somehow that you have made all your plans and then those plans change suddenly, which is what happened with you, Bill. And then how did you leap into hypnotist? How did that go?
You know, I wish there was a better story for me to tell as far as a direct connection, but I never really thought about it before. And I think I might have even seen a book or an advertisement. I don't remember exactly what it was that made something click. And I probably saw advertisements for stockbrokers and plumbers and car mechanics, and none of that resonated with me. And I thought about it for about 15 minutes. And I immediately called two friends of mine who are both psychologists and psychiatrists, one of each. And they do very well. They've been around a long time. They have successful practices. And I didn't even get the word out of my mouth. And they both said, "Oh no, that you should definitely do that. You seem to be built for that." Now, I gravitated to it, and I couldn't tell you why. So that was one of those things where I just kind of felt like I could do that. And it's funny that I would mention, plumbers and car mechanics, because I'm so bad with that stuff. I'm a big tough guy in so many ways. I'm no good with a wrench. I'm no good with a paintbrush. So none of those other things spoke to me. And the idea of hypnotism, it just hit me right away. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I had never been hypnotized. I really don't think I knew too many people that had been hypnotized. But it just spoke to me, and I only have two gears. I either sit on the couch and eat pizza, or I go full throttle, but I don't have much in between, which is why I've only played music my whole life for 45 years of my adult life. And I just thought, if I'm going to go into this, I'm really going to hit the gas on this one. And I've honestly, I look forward to every session I do.
Well, it is, a lot of people use the pandemic to try new things. The pandemic itself brought on fears. Teri, I bet you've dealt with a lot of people who've had incredible fear during the pandemic.
I think as a whole, the majority of people, and not to say everyone, but the majority of people have had their cages rattled a little bit with the pandemic, and it has brought up for a lot of people that I see the reality that what was their security or their safety is actually a little bit of an illusion. So that does in fact trigger the fear, and then the body gets involved, and then Katie bar the door because it's game on at that point, So
Joy says, I have a great fear of the interstate driving. It causes a lot of issues for me and nobody understands it. Also, I have a fear of hearing bad news. Now, that's interesting. I guess fear of what's coming that may never happen. I quit watching the news, as it were. I found that our brain, and I saw something about it too, our brains rewire based on what we feed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can rewire ourselves into anxiety living.
Yeah.
What say you guys? Throwing that out there.
I think anxiety living is it's a form of addiction. I mean, it releases certain chemicals in the body, and when it's kind of like the donut at Krispy Kreme. I mean, it's not that you look forward to it. I don't think a heroin addict looks forward to when they're trying to stop having their addiction, that craving. They don't look forward to, wow, I'm gonna self-betray again. Mm-hmm. But the brain is far more powerful than we actually give it credit for. But even to top that, we control the brain. So, with the proper tools and healthy tools, anyone can navigate any fear, phobia, which are two different things, navigate all of that, any kind of hiccup. So I don't know, Bill, what's your 2 cents on that?
Well, actually, Teri, that was brilliantly eloquent, because when you mention the Krispy Kreme donut, I know some people might giggle, but that's a great analogy, where it's this thing that it's never ending, you want more.
Right.
And when I've dealt with through hypnotism, you said something also, that fear and phobia is a different thing. And the way I try to describe it to people is, if you are afraid to swim in the ocean because you're afraid of sharks, that's a fear. That's a rational fear. There are sharks in the ocean. If you're afraid to jump in your backyard pool because you're afraid of sharks, that's a phobia. Now, some people think I'm kidding when I say that. There are people who they can't swim underwater in their own pool. They can't put their face down in the bathtub. Now, it really exists. And so what we do as hypnotists is, we always look at it as kind of the tip of the iceberg. And I always do this because I do all my work, or 99% of it, on Zoom, where I'm not in the same room with you. I always do this and this. And I go, okay, right now up here, that there's no shark in your bathtub, but we need to get it down here. What is it down here that's tangled up?
Right.
And so the difference between the fear and the phobia, the first thing you have to do is target that and let this person know, as a client, let them know that, okay, can you admit that it's a bit irrational? You have to, that's a tough line. I always feel like I'm on the high wire. You don't want to insult somebody. You don't want to say, this is ridiculous. You have to go with compassion, but make them realize that there is a difference between a fear and a phobia. And you start there, and if you can't start there, you're probably not going to be successful.
And Bill, do you recognize when you're working with folks that, from your experience, are the majority of individuals that you work with, by the time they arrive at your screen, since you do mostly Zoom, do you feel that they are ready, like they can actually create a pocket that goes, it feels very real to me, but I also get it. Logically, I get it. Because I see that a lot with people.
Yeah. And the first thing I tell people when they they call me. Obviously, this is not a door-to-door salesman, right? I can't knock on your door and say, hey, can you use my services? They come to me, and the first thing I tell them is, the fact that you called me means you're on the right path. And the second thing I do is I tell them, I said, look, it takes a lot of energy to have a phobia.
Mm-hmm.
What if we took that same energy and put that snowball moving in a different direction? What if you took all of that and put it towards your healing as opposed to your phobia? And, I tell them it takes the same amount of energy to run away from something than to run towards something. Why don't we make it positive? And the very next thing I tell them is this does not have to be this crushing, serious experience. Yeah. We can have some fun. I'm not making it comical, but we can have this. I give my clients theme songs. I give them cartoons, right, to make them relate to it. And I usually do what I call my patented DFS, which is my devastating finger snap. You know how the hypnotist always says this? And my DFS, I set them up and I go, look, I'm going to imprint this word and you are not going to forget it because I don't miss. And I tell them that. I simply do not miss. So when I say to you, the word that you need for yourself is nurture. I don't end it there. I say, look at me, and the word you need is nurture. I've heard people tell me that it sounded like a gunshot when I snapped my fingers. It sounded like a cannon. So I break it down for people that they can really absorb it, that they don't need to read a book. They don't need to talk to me for 3 hours. We're going to target what the problem is. The fact that you called me, we're in good shape. This is not going to be a tonsillectomy. This is not going to be surgery. We can have a little fun with this. And it's going to end with a finger snap that's pretty much going to blow your mind, and you're going to remember it for as long as you need to remember it.
That's just so cool. Hypnotherapy is something that's very, very different. It's a different mode. And Brian says, sadly, many people will do or not do things out of fear that they would do for no other reason. People who know this often use this to manipulate others. Life is about overcoming for all of us. I love that. And he follows that with of the positive energy in this discussion. Thank you. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. We have this is like the 12-step program without the steps every Wednesday at Launch Date. We all are trying to just literally feel lighter because we walk around with a heaviness. There was a young woman that is on your website that said that she dealt with a fear of dogs, just like the fear of sharks or snakes or whatever it is. We all have reasons why those fears come about. But tell us a little bit about her story. Since she's on your website, I know it's okay to talk about it.
Not only is it okay, it's her name is Nilu. Mm-hmm. Now, Nilu, when she did a session with me, she explained to me ahead of time. It's called xenophobia, C-Y-N-O. Xenophobia is a fear of dogs. Now, again, as Terry said, being afraid to step out in front of a bus is reasonable, right? So being afraid of a big angry dog that's barking at you, we're not talking about that. We're talking about this woman who's very successful, a very self-actualized woman, if you want to call it that. She would say that for her whole life, when she walked out the door, if there was a dog 100 yards away, she'd go back inside. If there were 2 dogs, if they were barking, all these different things, it was not just a matter of, I'm afraid of being bitten. Right? So we did a session. Now, Nilu is a brilliant, brilliant woman. And it was frustrating for her because you would think my intellect should be able to overcome this, but that's not the way it works, right? That's the difference between this and this. So I did a session with Nilu, and in 15 minutes, she said these words, because I remember it. She said, wow, I just felt something change. And I said, what do you think changed? And she said, right there, she just said, I think I'm over it. And she had this for 35 years or something like that. And I said, okay, well, let's go with this a little bit. She wasn't in, there's all levels of trance. and this was not the zombie thing that you see.
Yeah.
You
Walk
know,
like a chicken.
on
Yeah.
television. Yeah. No, she was just, relaxed, kind of like, almost like we're talking right now, just with her eyes closed. And she said, a friend of mine has a dog, and I don't go over their house because I'm afraid of the dog. She said, I think I'm going to go see them soon. I said, well, that's great.
Mm.
She said these words. She said, wow, Bill, you're really good at this. And I had to correct her. I said, you need to understand you're in control. It's like Terry said earlier, it's your brain, it's your mind. The brain is an organ, but the mind is kind of a concept. You're in control. So I said, no, this is you. This is not me. This is you. And when we got a little further into it, I said to her, no, this was pretty much your doing, not my doing. And the picture on my website, she sent to me a few days later. It's her sitting in the backyard with this. I mean, it looks to be about an 80 or a 90-pound dog that she's hugging and licking her face or whatever it is. And it was a tremendous experience for her and for me. I mean, that's why I put it on the website. I said to her, I'll pixelate your face, I'll cover your face and I won't use your real name. And she said, no, just the opposite. I want you to use my name. I want people to know that this is a real person and that this isn't just a story.
Well, Terry has dogs. That she might have actually been going to get one of hers while we were talking about that. So, Brian has something to add. Did you go get your dog?
I did. They decided now would be the perfect time to chew on a bone right beside me. And I was like, I'm thinking this is not perfect timing.
She was listening.
Yes.
Yeah. My grandfather taught me very young, Brian says, that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the will to overcome fear, which is what both of you were saying. Both of you were saying that. Let's talk. And I want the people who are watching right now to put in the comments a fear that you either want to overcome or tell us that you have overcome a fear. I love Elizabeth always brings a lot of faith, hope, and experience. You may have mentioned it in our rooms. Fear means face everything and recover. I have never heard that. I've heard, false evidence appearing real. I've heard in the rooms, but that is grace. Face everything and recover. Wow, that's huge.
You have an incredible intellectual audience.
Oh,
yeah. They're lovely.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much in tune. Yeah.
This group is great, and we miss people when they don't check in. Barbara adds, the power of your mind is very powerful.
Yes. And, that's one of the things, as Bill was saying earlier, we both touched on it, that we get locked in a lot of times conceptually that our brain is the one that calls the shots, but it's our mind, because our mind is actually not the brain. The brain does what it's told to do. How it's implicitly trained or explicitly trained. It just does what we pattern it to do. And so you had said earlier, Devon, I don't know if we were actually on air or off, but that, with different behaviors, you can change that. And we also teach ourselves socially, from familial settings and just in general, that, change is hard. And I'm like, concrete is hard. Change just takes willingness.
Yeah.
And so I'm thrilled that we have Bill here today, because I know that a lot of times when we talk about hypnotists, hypnotherapy, anything that's got anything in it, people are like, oh, that's that woo-woo crazy stuff. And I'm not going to cluck like a chicken. And it's like, okay, well, that's limiting thoughts right there, because that's not what we're talking about, And personally, me, Devon, I'd love to cluck like a chicken. So whatever. I mean, I'm game,
I do every day. I got chickens. So there you go.
So I'm interested to know, Bill, what are some of the challenges that and I get that when people show up with you, they're ready, their readiness for change is there. But what are some of the things that are actually untruth that you sort of have to debunk and educate people around?
You just touched a couple of them. There's something called stage hypnotism. Now, it is real. It's not an act, but that is I'm going to make you forget the number 7. I'm going to make you cluck like a chicken. I'm going to make you Suddenly you're a ballerina, right? These are the people that do it at comedy clubs. They do it at bachelorette parties. I don't do that. Now, I'm not knocking it. That's just not what I do. But the idea that some people don't understand anything about hypnotism other than that, I sometimes have to explain to them essentially what hypnotism is. It's a matter of getting you to focus on a singular thing. It's essentially speaking to your subconscious. Now, there's a great phrase. I'm hoping your listeners can throw this one around. The great phrase is, imagination is the language of the subconscious. So up here, again, that's the reality. Up here, I know that second story balcony is very secure and it's not going to fall. But if you're afraid of heights, when you get up there, I don't care. I don't care how many architects talk to you. I don't care. Building inspectors, that goes out the window. When you're afraid of heights, you're afraid of heights. And so as a hypnotist, what we do is we kind of untangle that. We go backwards, sometimes with what we call age regression. And sometimes there's a couple of different techniques, a lot of big words, which we don't have to go into here. But the idea is get you to understand that the 3 words I hate hearing from a client, I rarely use the word hate. When I have a new client, and I'll say things like, I want to walk through this. We're not going to sprint through it. We're going to go one little step at a time. And when I start asking them questions, they say the 3 words that I hate, and that's this. Yeah. Kind of like, okay, yeah, let's just get to the part where you cure me. And I said, well, that's not the way it works. So some of the challenges are really, I'm 63 years old. My idea of hypnotism was one of the episodes of Superman where the guy's walking down the street like a zombie. They can't wake him up, and ridiculous. That's what we grew up with.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so I have to dispel that. And the other thing is, I tell people immediately, I can't get you to divulge your bank account numbers or your secret passwords or anything. It's none of that. You're in complete control. And it's a matter of you allowing yourself to let go of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
We've got people who are putting things like, Elizabeth, my fears aren't of things like heights or water or drowning. My fears are based in my own perceptions of myself. I'm afraid of not being good enough. Whew. That's a great big old capsule, isn't it, Teri?
That is the mother load of capsules, and that's one of the things that for many times that fear alone, that concern alone stems out to so many other things. One person may be afraid of not being good enough, and then their group of friends are going to go kayaking, and then suddenly they can't go kayaking because they're not good enough to go kayaking. And what if I drowned? And that turns into this whole like rat race of triggers, activations, I call them, of that stunt our emotional and, our cognitive intelligence and keep us in this quicksand,
And sometimes we return to the place of our greatest fear. We literally return to our greatest fear because we become comfortable there,
Yeah, you hate it, but you know how to navigate it, right?
Yeah, I said
people do it all the time.
I'm used to this crap, so I'm gonna just go back there. It's just awful. And so what we want to encourage everybody, we want to give you some tools. Teri, first of all, we have got a weekend planned in January, giving you guys a heads up what we're going to be doing. Have you got a page up yet on your website for people to sign up?
Oh no.
Girl, no. Okay. We're going to be doing something in Nashville, and it's a very small little workshop for a Saturday.
Yes, it'll be a Saturday. We haven't quite yet decided a lot of the details, but I trust that you guys know me. The woo-woo gets me through. So I trust that the universe is going to lay it out for me. All I'm going to do is meditate, and it's going to be there. And, call me crazy. I love it. But that's what we're going to do. To probably cap it out at about 8 people, because it's not a COVID thing. It's an intimate thing. I'm not a fan of big, large workshops because I like the intimacy of the small groups.
Wayne wants to know what's Saturday, and I'm looking to see what Saturday you
it's the
texted me. The 8th. The 8th.
Yeah.
January 8th. It's called, the reboot. It's like a reboot boot camp.
Yeah,
And it's starting out the first of the year, just kind of going, okay, we're here. Let's do a little reset button and start this next year, 2022.
It's going to be a lot about just connection, releasing, and attracting. And those are things that we do all the time. We do them all the time. So we're gonna level it up a few notches.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Bill, how can people get in touch with you? Is it just BillCinqueHypnotist.com that we've got on the screen?
That's the easiest. If you want to save a couple of letters, a couple of keystrokes, it's my initials. It's bchypno.com. It'll take you to the same place.
Okay.
And take a look at the website, and it spells out everything pretty easily. And if you have any questions, just send me an email, and I usually get back to you within 3 hours of any email.
Nice.
And Teri, you tell people how to get in touch with you.
TeriPugh.com.
Mm-hmm.
And
y'all just send me an email.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody knows how to get in touch with me because everybody already does.
Because everybody knows you. I go all over the world and people know Devon O'Day. My goodness.
Well, I don't know about that, but usually because, it's like, be sure before you tell them my name that, do I owe them money or
I can tell your audience firsthand, I have gotten many free tickets and backstage passes just by dropping your name, which I do often, by the way. Throw your name around every chance I get. So.
No shame in the ticket game there.
No, absolutely not. That musicians and songwriters, I do have a good community of friends there. Hey, Brian Williams says, "Am I good enough?" Covers a lot of ground, and probably most, if not all, people. We doubt at times. There's a bit that we put in our own mouths, and it slows all of us down. Gosh, Brian, that's pretty brilliant. I love that. Barbara, trust the process. Power of our subconscious can be retained. And Wayne, in the words of Teri, increase the peace. Have a great day. Yes, that's our peeps right there.
That's right. That's right. That's been the tagline for me for, decades now. It's just increase the peace, man. That's, whatever that is, your mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is. Work towards increasing it.
Oh, and Candy says, drop Devon's name often and with love. I love it, Candy. Well, you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. We're going to say bye to you, Bill, and Teri. Thank you so much always. And you can bring us home, Mama.
It is a pleasure. Thank you guys for joining us today. And as always, increase the peace. Until next time.